This is one of Keychron's newer keyboards, the K10 V2 QMK version, and Keychron did send this keyboard out to me, but they are not paying me to make this review video, and they also have no say in what this review is about. They sent this keyboard out to me back around December, and I've been using it for just over a month now, and I think this is going to be my permanent work keyboard because of both the features that it offers as well as the design that they took with this one, which is a little bit different from all of their other keyboards. This is still an intro level keyboard, but has a lot of the features that more customized keyboards have and could easily cost 5 times the price of the K10 V2. In the keyboard world, it is difficult to find 100% keyboards that are custom made in terms of having a very specific design aesthetic. But what Keychron has done here, as with a lot of their other K series keyboards, is include the option to have an aluminum case around the keyboard that does add a little bit of weight and elevates the experience or elevates the design a little bit from the regular K series. There are a few features that separate the K10 V2 apart from the other keyboards, and they are what convinced me to use this one as my daily productivity keyboard. But first, let's take a look at what comes in the box. Similar to other mechanical keyboards, the first thing you'll notice is that there are extra keycaps to swap between Windows key legends if you're running a PC instead of going with the default Mac keycaps. Have you guys noticed that most of these larger pre-built keyboard companies are now defaulting to the Mac keycaps instead of going with Windows keycaps? Does that mean that Mac owners are now the larger part of the mechanical keyboard world, or at least the major part of the pre-built community? Let me know in the comments, are you someone that's buying a pre-built keyboard, and are you using Mac or are you using Windows? And also make sure to get subscribed if you're enjoying the content so you can watch more videos on studio tech and how you can upgrade your setup. Other than the keycaps though, the K10 V2 QMK also does include the manual and some extra accessories for taking the keyboard apart in case you would like to customize it a little bit more with the keycaps or switch out the switches. The cable that does come in the box is a USB-A to C, and it has a USB-A male side that is angled because, as with a lot of the other K series keyboards from Keychron, the USB port is on the side rather than being on the back of the keyboard. Like I mentioned earlier as well, this version that I have here is the aluminum version, and it does have RGB lighting and is also hot swappable. Having all those 3 features does add $10 per additional feature, but even a fully modded out Keychron K10 V2 is still $115, which is going to be cheaper than a lot of the other custom keyboards, which if you are on a budget, you can definitely go without the aluminum frame and save yourself $10. Unfortunately, you can't do the hot swappable option with only the white backlight, which would be the least expensive configuration, but I would not recommend going with this one because I will always be advocating for hot swappability on a keyboard, especially if it's going to be an intro level keyboard where you might be looking to switch out the switches later on. With this keyboard, you can also take full advantage of the backlight now that the keycaps are shine through. They are double shot PVT shine through keycaps, which to me is a huge welcome change because I never really understood why a keyboard has a backlight if you can't even see the key legends through the keycaps. You'll also notice that the keyboard is now a fully black keyboard without that dual tone aesthetic that Keychron is known for, which is honestly a huge change to my eyes. I didn't really like the blue purple color scheme because it just didn't match with my setup. And another huge welcome change to me is that these are now cherry profile keycaps instead of the OSA that they were using on all of their other keyboards. This is just more comfortable for me to type on, so it's definitely something that I've enjoyed. They're also all black keycaps now, which might be boring to some, but to me it looks a little bit more professional and I actually like the way it looks. I've even swapped out the escape key that does come in orange so that all the keycaps on this keyboard are now black and it's a single tone keyboard. The switches that came with my keyboard are the Keychron Brown Super switches, which are very similar to Gateron Browns. They're really light tactiles that are a great intro into tactile switches without really causing too much stress on your fingers. I know it sounds weird, but when you're used to using a scissor switch keyboard, having a heavy tactile mechanical switch can definitely cause your fingers to hurt. The K10 is also a 100% version of the keyboard, but they have launched other K series QMK keyboards if you're looking to get something smaller. The full size to me is actually a really nice upgrade to me from my previous work keyboard, which was the Halo 96 from Newfie. mainly because of the separation of the keys. I really like the color aesthetic of the Halo 96, but the 96 part of it had made me accidentally click the number pad without meaning to when I was reaching for an arrow key. This is especially true when I'm already used to the full-size MX keys that I have at work, and then when I come home and work from home, my habits are already to reach a little bit too far to the right, making me accidentally hit the number pad. A couple of things to keep in mind about the QMK version of the K10 though, is that you do miss out on that 2.4 gigahertz dongle. I personally never really used it until this week when I built my first custom PC and the motherboard didn't have Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So it's definitely something to mention. If your PC's motherboard doesn't support Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, or your computer just doesn't have any of those connections, this doesn't come with that dongle. The other connection options are very similar to other keyboards with the 3 Bluetooth connections, and you can use it wired as well. In the first 3 weeks that I used it, I didn't have any battery issues even with the RGB fully on while using it with my Mac in Bluetooth mode. It does, however, still suffer from that Bluetooth connection time, like the timing when it does take a little bit longer to connect whenever you're turning it on from sleep, which can be a little bit annoying. From my experience, it does take roughly 3 to 5 seconds to connect, but once it's connected, the auto off timer does take a while and it doesn't really have to do it multiple times a day. Before we do move on to the customization in the all new Keychron launcher app, I want to show you guys a quick sound test of what the K10 V2 sounds like straight out of the box. As you can see, this keyboard is no joke when it comes to the sound profile straight out of the box, even if it is missing that silicone insert that comes with the Max counterpart. Similar to the Max though, this QMK version is also compatible with Keychron's new launcher web app, which is similar to how VIA works, but it has a couple of features that is great or even better for beginners. It allows you to update your keyboard straight from the web app without the needing to do anything extra like download the firmware and then having to install it yourself. It also allows you to connect your keyboard without the need of any JSON files and having to go out and find those files to begin with and then upload them to the VIA web app. With the launcher app, you can also set up macros on the keyboard by setting them up with key presses, which is a little bit more intuitive to do by just recording the key presses instead of like having to type them out. You can also use the launcher web app to customize the lighting, the effects, the colors, whatever it may be. You can do it all through the launcher web app. I personally see myself going back to the white lighting rather than sticking with RGB, mainly because it's brighter than the colors and it also keeps that minimal aesthetic to my keyboard that's a little bit more professional to my eye. You can also set here which of the presets you would like to get and also set up multiple layers to the keyboard if you want to have different layouts. You can also use it to customize the macOS and Windows layers to be completely different and make that switch on the keyboard be a mode switch rather than being a OS or operating system switch. You can have it switch between being a productivity keyboard to a gaming keyboard. After using some of the other keyboards like the G915X from Logitech, after building my PC with it, I realized that there is the possibility of accidentally clicking keys and exiting out of a game. So it's really nice that you can go into the launcher app and also customize your keyboard such that some of the keys can be completely turned off and you kind of lose that risk of accidentally exiting out of that game. And if you've also already configured your keyboard through the VIA app, the Keychron launcher app will also recognize any changes you have made to the keyboard and you'll be able to customize it through the launcher app as well. Having that switch to toggle between layers is one of the reasons why I also like pre-built keyboards, because most of them now come with that switch that you can switch between 2 different layers on a mechanical switch rather than always having one layer, which is the default on a custom keyboard. One thing that's also great about pre-built is that most of them now offer hot swap ability by default. This is great for a beginner because you never really know exactly what kind of switches you'll like. I'll see it all the time. Do I go with brown switches? Do I go with linear switches? What's a clicky switch? So having that hot swap ability allows you to get a keyboard and then later on down the line, you can switch them out for different ones if you ended up not liking your first choice. It also means that there is no soldering on your first keyboard or when you first want to customize it to a different switch. It also allows you to refresh the feel and sound of the keyboard in a few months down the line, Rather than having to upgrade to a whole new keyboard, you can just customize the one that you want. I see it similar as a PC. When you build a PC and a couple years down the line, if I want to switch out the GPU or the CPU, you can switch out tiny parts and refresh the PC. That's the same thing with the keyboard. Rather than having one that you have to desolder and then solder new switches on, which is a little bit more difficult. The hot swappable feature for me is always a must with any keyboard that you go with, which is what's great about Keychron's offerings. They have all sizes across all series, so you can go exactly for what you need rather than kind of settling for a different option. Let me know in the comments what you think of this K10 V2 or any of Keychron's other offerings, and whether you also started with Keychron as your first mechanical keyboard. Thanks a lot for watching. Click here to watch another one of my videos, and I'll catch you in the next one.